right, good morning, Bardstown and Nelson County. Welcome to Bradford and Brooks, a very special Friday edition of Bradford and Brooks. And Margie, we normally don't have Friday shows unless it's right before an election and we want to get in some interviews with candidates right before the election.
Right, and I'm glad that we were able to do so.
Well, and I also want to give a tip of the hat to Milt Spalding, because this is a time when he's normally on the air on Fridays, and he allowed us to take over his hour of time on the radio today, so that we could continue our interviews with candidates for office. And one of the candidates joining us today is Trey Bradley. Trey is a Republican candidate for 50th District State Representative. And good morning, Trey.
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Margie.
Morning.
It's really a pleasure to have you here today. The 50th District State Representative is an important seat, as all our elected positions are. But it's a pleasure to have you in to talk about your campaign and what you see are the important issues moving forward. And I'm sure that as active as you've been campaigning, you hear a lot of different things from constituents of what everybody has concerns are going to be a little different, but I'm sure there's some common threads tying them all together. Tell our listeners about Trey Bradley and about your background and the experience you bring to bear on seeking the 50th District State Rep seat.
Yeah,
Sure.
and your Nelson County bona fides as to your name.
That's
because
right.
I know you're related to half the people in the county.
I am that. But again, thank you for having me, and thank you for coming out on a Friday. I know it's not your normal hours, and I mean, this race is extremely important, as is all the races, and giving me the time to do this is appreciated. So thank you. But yes, I'm Trey Bradley, born and raised here in Nelson County. Married to my wife, Amanda Boone Bradley. She's from New Haven. We've been married 16 years. She's actually my high school sweetheart, and we've been married for 16 years. We got two kids, Jack, who's 13, Madeline, who's 9. They both go to St. Joseph School. My wife actually is a teacher at St. Joe. She teaches 4th grade there. It's a Teacher Appreciation Week, so to all the teachers out there here in Nelson County and in other counties, surrounding counties, thank you for what you do. It's extremely important profession, and thank you. Yeah, I was born and raised in Bloomfield. I'm on a small farm there, about 30 acres. We raised about 3 acres of tobacco, had 25, 30 cattle. It's there where I learned, hard work. My work ethic was important to me. It's been important to me my whole life. I also learned the value of a dollar. And I came from modest means, really. My parents both worked. My dad worked at Heaven Hill for 40 years. My mom worked at Lily Tulip or Owens, Illinois, or now American Fujifilm for about 30 to 40 years as well. And they were hardworking people. And quite frankly, they gave me the foundation to be successful here in Nelson County, which is, and I'll talk about a little bit more, that's what I want. I'm living the American dream. I was able to be educated here in Nelson County. Went to college at UK, and I've been able to come back and work here in Nelson County and be successful here in Nelson County. And that's really why I'm in this race, because I want that same opportunity for the next generation, for my kids and everybody else's kids to be able to live here, work here, raise a family here, because it is a great place to live. Like I said, I graduated from Nelson County High School in 1998. Before that, it was a Bloomfield Middle School, was a Bloomfield Indian before they changed the Blazers, and Eli Brown. But then graduated from Nelson County in 1998, then went on to the University of Kentucky, where I graduated there in 4 years in 2002 with a degree in business, marketing, and management, a bachelor's degree. From that time, I went on and started in the workforce from that time on, and I've been working for the Valvoline Company out of Lexington this is my 17th year actually with them. Great company. A lot of people don't know it's a Kentucky company. World headquarters are in Lexington. It's a unique company too, because we get to compete against some of the biggest companies in the world. We're a small little oil company, compete against the Mobiles and the Shells and things like that. And I like that. I like competition. But they've treated me well. There I run their distribution business for the Southeast United States. So all the Valvoline bulk distributors to the Southeast flow up through me, and I'm a regional director for the distribution business. So I have a team that covers that area. It's about a $40 million business when it comes to revenue. I manage a budget of about $1.5 million. I've got to make tough decisions, hiring, firing, how to spend money. I'm used to that, and I succeed at that. But I think the most important thing about being a leader and a manager, and what I've learned, is really being a listener. I think my team, if you spoke to them, they tell you, Trey asks us. Trey seeks advice. Trey doesn't just go out and make decisions. He listens and takes all the information in. And I would do that. I think that equates well to the state rep race, where you're going to listen to the people. You're going to talk to your constituents. You're going to find out before you go out and make decisions. You're going to listen to them. And I think that's a good crossover for my job today. But I'm active in the community. That's another thing. I mean, this community, this county is important to me. It's extremely important to me. I've coached every little league there is, from baseball to basketball. This past year, I coached the third grade girls at St. Joe, and that was an experience. What I learned is there's no downtime in practice. You got to keep them moving. You get downtime, you lost the practice. But that was a good experience. But I've done that. I've been on the church council for St. Michael's Church. That's my church over in Fairfield. I just got back on Saturday from helping Bethlehem and their bass fishing team compete in the region tournament down there. So I was a coach for them. And so and I'm the chairman here at the local party. So I do all of those things are volunteer. I do all of that because this community and the people of this community are important to me. And people did that for me when I was growing up, and it just feels like my turn to give back. But as far as the candidacy, I'm 100% pro-life. I was endorsed by, only candidate to be endorsed by Kentucky Right to Life. I got an AQ rating from the NRA. So AQ rating from the NRA. I always protect your constitutional right to bear arms. I believe in limited government, low taxes, economic freedom, and I'm excited to be here. So Margie, do you have a question?
Yeah. What do you see are the top 3 challenges for you, for Nelson County, for the next 20 years?
For the next 20 years?
Well, I mean, you have to look down the road.
Absolutely. So the next 20 years is continue economic development, right? So we've got the Ford plant coming into Glendale, which that's going to have an impact on us. And do we have the infrastructure there prepared and ready to go, from roads to sewers to be able to capitalize on those people moving here? That's number one. But it's more than just that. We've got, the distilleries are adding jobs every day. We've got small businesses. This community has done a pretty good job of economic and jobs flourishing. Now, I would say this: you can't just have jobs. One of the biggest concerns I have with this state is workforce participation. If you look at it, we're the third lowest when it comes to workforce participation. And the fact of the matter is over the last 2 decades, that's continued to lower down. So you can have all the jobs in the world, but we got to have workers. Right. We got to have able-bodied workers that work in these things as well. So I would say that's one of the biggest issues I see moving forward.
All right. Now I was looking last night at the campaign finance reports.
Yep.
And you've received donations, of course, from supporters of probably more than 2 parties. I mean, you've gotten a wide range of support, people backing you in this race. Some notable Democrats as well. What do you think? Sometimes I think in races like this, it's the person more than the party. In some cases, you seem to be able to. You're attracting Democrats to support you too. So what's that? That's, to me, that speaks that you're not interested in partisanship more as you are of getting things done.
That's right. And so I would tell you this. So if you look at my KREF filing, I've probably received 30 plus donations from individuals, all individuals. And one thing I don't ask them when they want to support my campaign is, what party are you from? Because quite frankly, in this position, you've got to be able to work with everyone in order to get things done. And what I want to do is get things done for Nelson County. And at the end of the day, if that means working across the aisle here locally, I will. I'll have to. I mean, if we don't know what's going to happen in the judge race, with the mayor's race, if they're Republican or Democrat, I'm working with them. I'm going to have to work with them, and I'm going to do everything I can to get things done for the people here in Nelson County.
All right. Now, and I have to bring this up because it's been a topic of discussion. As of this morning, State Representative Chad McCoy has not officially withdrawn from the race. So technically, until he does, it's still a 3-candidate race. Though I know that he's donated to your campaign, and he has not accepted the first donation. He is not actively in any sort of campaign mode. But if he still remains a candidate in the race, votes cast for him, instead of being thrown out, will be counted. Though, I don't know, have you and your campaign team, I mean, is that an issue to you that he hasn't withdrawn? I mean, obviously everybody knows that you're in the race.
Right, yeah.
You know.
And I think,
and people, anybody who's probably going to vote knows that whether he withdraws officially or not, that he's retiring, that he's already announced his plans to retire from the legislature.
And then what is what I know. I mean, Chad's told me he's going to retire and withdraw, and I assume he's going to do that. I wish he would do it sooner rather than later. I wish he'd done it before the election. I mean, because him being on the ballot, quite frankly, it hurts me. And I want people to know that a vote casted for him is an invalid vote. Well,
it will be.
It will be. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I know he's not actively seeking any votes.
No.
All right. What are you hearing from when you're talking with constituents about their concerns? I mean, the General Assembly now, we've got supermajorities in both houses. The Republicans do, and we just had the state, depending on probably your political views, had passed some landmark legislation this past time, or maybe if you're not in favor of that legislation, you might say it's problematic. But what do you see? Before I go further, I want to ask you about the state the legislature is leaning towards reducing income tax and applying the state sales tax to kind of move towards the model that Tennessee has.
Yes.
Is that something that is that something you support, or because right now we're kind of in a shifting phase, where kind of an in between.
We are. Yeah.
And a lot of where we go and how it moves forward is when I read the legislation is kind of keyed to some other things, in the economy on as far as But anyway.
Yeah. So
what do you think about that? That is a path forward.
Yeah, I'm 100% for it. And so this year they passed House Bill 8. And what that does is, if you look back a couple of years, we used to have an income tax rate that was 6%, compared to our, you mentioned Tennessee at 0, Indiana thinks at 3.2, Ohio's at 3.9. So we were uncompetitive when you look at the surrounding states around us. What's happened since that time is they lowered it to 5% a session ago, and this year they passed House Bill 8. And what that does is going to lower it to 4.5% on January 1. What that means is $500 million in the pockets of working Kentuckians. And I'm for that. At the end of the day, I'd like to reduce the income tax like they're doing, and they're going to continue to do it. You said it, when they hit certain triggers and certain financial thresholds, they're going to continue that lowering that down to ultimately go to 0, which I agree with, and I agree with that approach. That's a very thoughtful approach. What we've done is we've learned from some of the other states. I think Kansas was one that's a big example of people where they went from X% to 0, and the state almost went bankrupt. And so I think Kentucky's approach here is really smart and thoughtful in how they're going to do it and making sure we hit some financial hurdles. Now I would say this: income tax is a penalty for workers. It's a penalty for production, and I think spreading out the tax base, doing it on more of a consumption-based tax, is the right thing to do. Think about this: in Bardstown, we get 1.8 million visitors here every year. Wouldn't it be nice to get some of their money to go toward to help spread out that tax base versus it all coming from the workers? If you look at the state of Kentucky, I think they get about 75 million tourists a year. Again, we like to have some of their money and not just on the backs of the workers. So I think ultimately we got to remain competitive with the people around us. Because keep in mind, I work from home now. A lot of people work from home now. Is that a determining factor? If somebody they can get all their income versus going to Kentucky where they got to pay 5%, that probably could be. And so we've got to make sure we're competitive when we talk about bringing jobs and economic development here.
Well, that's an excellent point, Trey, because my daughter lives and works in D.C. for a public relations firm. But they've been through COVID, and they're now, if you want to move out of state, they'll let you continue to telecommute. You have to participate on the same level, but she could move back to Kentucky and still keep her job in D.C., though, she might have to drive back or fly back for certain, meetings and other events. But right now she's not going to move. She loves D.C.
Well, what would you say to the fact that a lot of people consider the sales tax as a regressive tax, which will hurt people who make much less? In other words, the people who earn the highest salaries are going to benefit greatly from you cutting the income tax. But the people who are out there every day, all of their everyday expenses, it will take a bigger chunk of their income than it would of someone who makes a much higher salary.
Here's what I would say. With a sales tax or consumption tax, I feel like I'm in control. With the income tax, it gets taken without me even having any kind of input. So I feel like, if I want to go hire a lawn service to cut my yard and I got to pay taxes on it, I'm in control of that spend. So I think it gives people the power to either invest, put in the bank, or go out and spend it, and I think that's the right approach. And if you look at some of the things they're taxing, again, I said lawn service, valets, lobbyists, there's some things out here that the average person really aren't going to get penalized for, but even if you go and expand it more, you still have control of how you spend your money, and it incentivizes saving, incentivizes you to pick and choose how you spend your money.
Well, Trey, I know that there's been some effort in the General Assemblies of the past to allow and I think they have these in, I know in Louisville and maybe Fayette County, to allow for like taxing districts for specific projects. For example, the arena in downtown Louisville. Is that something that, and I know there's been some movement to trying to allow communities, say, of course, what's one of the top things on everybody's wish list in Nelson County? A multi-purpose indoor sports facility.
Sure.
And if you had the ability to set a taxing district and that money would be devoted to retiring that debt, you could ostensibly fund a number of projects like that. But is that something you would see, you would support or consider exploring as a member of the General Assembly?
I haven't really thought about that, Jim, and quite frankly, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a low tax candidate. If it's going to cost the people more money, no, I would not be for it. As far as the local facility here, I mean, we talked about this in 2018 when I ran for magistrate. I think it was still on this. We've been talking about it for quite some time.
That's right.
I mean, I think I just don't see there's a way that the county could afford and pay for something that's funded solely by the government. But can we do things to help incentivize somebody to put something here that's a private entity? Absolutely, and I think we should.
All right. Now, of course, as a member of the legislature, you're not just looking out for the interest of Nelson County, though that's who would send you to office. You're also part of the greater body for the good of the Commonwealth. Where's that balance in your mind? I mean, you talk to our elected officials, and we always need more money for blacktop. We always want more projects in the road plan, and we want ours to come up first for funding, As a member of the legislature, people are going to be bending your ear quite a bit because there's lots of things that in all communities that they have needs, but there's just the pot of money is just so. Is limited. Mm-hmm. And so at some point you've got to say, well, that's a great project, but, here's the fiscal reality.
Sure. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think, Nelson County is an important piece of the Commonwealth, but you're right. You got to look at the bigger picture. But I would fight as much as I can to get as much money here for the projects that we need in the community here that we need, while also looking at some of the other areas of need as well. But at the end of the day, my job here is first and foremost to represent the people here in this district,
right.
And that's what I'm going to go up there and do.
All right, the Margie, you have a question?
When you filed for this office, Chad McCoy was going to run and had filed to run also. What would you say the differences are between you that would cause you to file to run against him?
I think first and foremost is just our background, where we came from. I feel like I'm connected to the average Nelson County. That's number one. Number two, I mean, our jobs are different. I talked about this. I think there's probably some things that me and Chad disagree on when it comes to his view of the world as an attorney and my view of the world in business. So I think there's probably some things there that we disagree on as well. At the end of the day, I got in the race originally because I wanted to win. I thought I was the best man for the job, and I think I know everyday average Nelson Countyans, and I think that's why I would represent them well.
Well, there's quite a bit of talk and a lot of questions about whether this was an arranged thing.
Sure.
Because
I've heard it too.
Because it changes it. It changes the nature of how many people would have registered to run. More Republicans as well as Democrats.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing, Margie. It's when I first got in the race, it was people were saying I was there to split the vote. I was only in to split the vote. I was only in to hurt the challenger. Now that Chad's got out, it was a backroom deal. And here's what I would say: if Chad's name wouldn't be on the ballot if this was a backroom deal. Chad would not still be in the race. That's what Jim told me today. If this was a backroom deal, at the end of the day, Chad being on the ballot hurts me. And so I would argue that if this is a backroom deal, it was the worst backroom deal in the history of backroom deals, and because it's not, and it wasn't.
All right, Trey. I know the state and all the local governments have received American Rescue Plan Act funds. Of course, I guess originally they were, aimed at infrastructure projects, and I know that the city and county have gone together on some projects like expanding internet and then connecting the city's water system to the Louisville Water Company by building a main going out 245. Of course, the American Rescue Act money is one-time money. It's not going to be back again. Or that's kind of my hope anyway, since we've spent trillions of dollars on the federal level. But I don't know if you've followed the legislature and what their thoughts have been on the use of federal money. But have you had any thoughts about, how do we, since this is really unique situation? I mean, it's all aimed at recovering from the pandemic and helping communities that have struggled. What do you have any particular thoughts on American Rescue Plan money and because I know the states had some uses, and then I know that there's been lots of discussion, and it's money you don't want to waste, but they've you don't want to squander these opportunities either.
Sure.
Either on the state or local level.
Yeah, and I mean, at least locally, you mentioned the water investment that we made here, which is exactly how that money should have been spent, and that thing's going to help us have water supply here for the next 20 years. On top of that, you just Heaven Hill's building a new distillery. Well, that distillery takes a lot of water, and so there are things like that we have to have infrastructure-wise here in this community, or we're not going to be successful. So that's one thing. On the state level, I know when you look at the budget this year, they funded schools at the highest rate that they've ever been funded. They also, if you look at the rainy day fund, I'm a big proponent of making sure that our budget, and we have a rainy day fund, it's going to be almost $2 billion this year. If you look back, pre-Republicans, it was a zero half the time. So that's an important component of getting your house in order from a state budget standpoint. And just like I run my own personal life, I have a rainy day fund, I have an emergency fund, I save money. In my business life, I do the same thing. I watch every penny, have emergency fund, things like that. I think the state needs to be run similar to that. And I'm happy that they've done that and are doing that. They're also they're funding the pension system the last few sessions, which is good, and they're making some of the right investments in infrastructure, which I think is good as well.
Chad McCoy had, in this session of the legislature, had introduced legislation which would do away with the distilled spirits tax, which would have cost the city and the county and both school districts.
Yep, that's right.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 8.1 million, I think. What is your take on that, and is this something that you would be for or take up the
Sure.
charge on.
And you mentioned, what am I hearing, knocking on doors? This is a big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny, week to week it changes. This was big at the beginning. This past week, the abortion thing comes up. There's week to week you hear different things but on this particular deal, first and foremost, I'll tell you that I followed a lot of the bills, specifically this one, and the bill was never filed to take that away. So the shell bill was put up, but it was never filed in the legislature. But here's my take on it.
But it's proposed.
Well, it was talked about for sure, absolutely. So here's my take on it. You're right, $8.65 million to Nelson County, about $7 million of it going to schools, another $1.1 million going to the county government, and then the rest going to the city and so forth. I would tell you that I've looked at it. I don't see any way of removing that it wouldn't cost the taxpayers of this community money, and I wouldn't be for that. I would not vote for that. So here's what I also tell you though. I also realize of why we would need to have that conversation, and why I think Chad's having that conversation, or why he introduced it was, Kentucky's the only state in the union that has a bourbon barrel tax. They are, and we got to make sure that we maintain our competitive advantage on the distillery side of things, and so the question is that how many distilleries are we losing that are going to places like Texas or going to places like Tennessee and things like that, and is this a cause for it? I would tell you that I don't know if it's been a cause. It feels like that our distilleries here are doing well. If you look at all the building they've done,
I mean, they're not hurting, and
Right.
look at all the land they're taking up.
Yeah.
Use of you mentioned earlier the water supply. I mean, there's just they're getting the benefit of our resources.
Right. And so here's what I'll tell you. Back to this, just to finalize this, is no, I wouldn't be in favor of pushing a tax onto the people of the county, because I think that's where it would go. So no. Would I be willing to have the conversation? Absolutely. I think you always got to have the conversation. You got to talk to them. That's when we talked about it earlier. Always, if there's a problem, we think there's a problem, I'll definitely have the conversation. But right now, looking at it, and what I would do in the future is I'm not going to raise taxes on the people here.
Well, Trey, I know at a fiscal court meeting I was attended, the county attorney made a reference to some of and of course the county approves revenue bonds for construction and whatnot. And in some of those agreements, the county attorney said that they have language in the most recent ones that would require distilleries' participation in some sort of fee arrangement, even if the tax went away.
Yeah.
There would be something to help replace that.
Yeah, because what I think the county government's done is they knew that was coming. They relied on it, so they've given them 30-year tax abatements. They don't have to pay property taxes because they know they're getting that. And so I think that's something that if I'm in the county government, if I was running for county government, we'd make sure we'd look at those agreements moving forward for sure to make sure that's in there.
Right. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, obviously, these discussions have been taking place for some time about this.
And look, I mean, these distillers. I mean, there's a reason why they're here, right? There's a reason why they want to put Kentucky on the label. I think there's value in that, and sometimes that comes with a cost. And so at the end of the day, that's where I stand on it.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. You can't make Kentucky bourbon in Texas,
No,
Tennessee,
no.
but any good business is reviewing the cost of doing business.
But here's what I would say. Those states are coming after our business. They're coming after this industry. I mean, the Tennessees, guess what they got? They got a whiskey trail, just like our bourbon trail. We had it first, but they're coming after. I mean, you can't just be in a vacuum and say, I'm just worried about people here. I'm just worried about you. Got to look around and see what's happening around you. Or you'll wake up one day and these states will have your business, your industry, and your people. And you got to be cognizant of that.
Good point. All right. Well, Trey, we need to stop and get some commercial messages in. You're listening to a very special Friday edition of Bradford and Brooks. Jim and Margie here with you till the top of the hour. And our very special studio guest is Trey Bradley. Trey is a Republican candidate for 50th District State Representative. And he'll be back with us in the hot seat when we return. Stay tuned. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you on this very special Friday edition of our show. Our special guest today in the studio is Trey Bradley. Trey is the Republican candidate for state representative, 50th District, that I guess is all of Nelson County. Pardon me, Trey. And Trey, I know that just to let our listeners know, your opponent in this primary will be on our show next Friday, Candy Massaroni. And then who's our guest this Wednesday, Margie? Is it David Davis?
David Davis.
That's right. That's right. Okay. That just the candidates kind of blur together
That's
after
right.
several weeks of scheduling. But tell us, if you don't mind, a little bit about the difference. You're both Republicans and both conservative Republicans, but there are differences in your points of view on a number of issues. And would you care to expound on that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think what I've been doing this whole campaign really is just talking about me and what I do and what I'm going to bring to the table. I've really stayed away from any negative politics at all, and I'm going to continue to do that. But I mean, there are some clear differences at the end of the day. I think I have the background here in the community, being born and raised here, the business experience to make good decisions. And at the end of the day, I'm really focused on how does the state rep here, make the lives of the people, put policies into place that make the lives of the people here better, create more opportunity for people here, raise their standard of living, things like that. Ultimately, that's what I'm focused on is how do we help people here locally. I think, I know my opponents brought up things about mandates. I'm against mandates. I've always been against. I don't know one single Republican that does like mandates. So I'm against vaccine mandates. I'm not anti-vaccine, but I'm against the government telling you have to take it. The mask debate. I mean, I think our kids and things were in masks for too long. And if I go to Frankfurt, I will make sure that those liberties are protected here at home in Nelson County.
All right. Are there any needs that you see as a potential state legislator that you see that you could help address in the county? Now, of course, every mayor and every magistrate and every judge executive candidate would tell you roads. We need roads. We need infrastructure. And now, of course, and you referred to this earlier, we need people who work. We need people to move in, or affordable housing is another big issue.
It is a big issue, yeah.
That as house prices and rents continue to escalate, and this issue really hit home with me because my son is 25, and the level of employment, the job he has to have if he wants to live independently. He's got to make quite a bit of money to afford to have his own apartment, or or go beyond that to buy a home. So it's just gotten more expensive over the last few years, and don't know that that's a bad thing, but except when it comes time to pay taxes on what your house has been reappraised at.
No, I agree with you.
But that's just part of progress, and I think that, and that's one reason I think. Government entities here in the county have been able to keep their tax rates lower because the assessments have gone up so much, Yeah. But
no, I agree with you. I think affordable housing here in Nelson County is a challenge. I worry about the next generation being able to, start off a family and being able to live here. I think it's a challenge. Now that's more and more of a local challenge as well. But I think this county can't be afraid of growth and housing growth. We need more housing here, and we need to be smart about it. I know the plan, the comprehensive plan is being worked on, which is good. But what you do today impacts you 5 and 10 years down the road. And I think what we've done is we let a lot of our builders here in this county go out of county. Right? They've been building in E-Town. They've been building in Mount Washington. They've been building out there. We need those people here. We need more housing. It's a whole thing of supply and demand. And at the end of the day, we cannot be afraid of growth. We need more housing here in the county.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of that is our growth. And I think during the public meetings about the comprehensive plan, Jan Johnston Crow alluded to the fact that growth in many parts of the county is limited by available sewer systems.
It is.
And that's an expensive infrastructure to build, but whose role is it to build it? We saw how private investors built a sewer system going out to serve Corman's Crossing out Deatsville area. And what that basically helped explode development all along 245 to have that system available. But they investors built it, the government didn't. So it kind of, where does, well, of course, in your state, it'd be state government.
Right.
State government really can't finance projects like this, but, you hope that through whatever processes that state government can access can, somehow contribute to greasing the wheels, if you will,
Absolutely.
to allow projects to happen.
Yeah, and I think the first job as a state rep is recognizing problems here, right? And I think this is a problem. And then, if I'm elected, infrastructure is going to be a big key that I'm going to have to go and get for this county. You talk about roads, you talk about sewer, we talk about water, we talk about internet. I mean, if you don't have high-speed internet, you can't compete in today's world. It's hard to work and live in today's world without high-speed internet. So those are the four things that I'll do everything in my power to make sure that we have here in this county, that we have funding to do, and working with the local government to try to provide that, because it is important. And if we don't have it, it's going to slow growth. Without new houses, it's hard. Housing prices just go through the roof. Sorry.
In the last session of this last session of the legislature mandated. We have a flush budget for once. I mean, it's usually we don't have enough money. But they've got a pretty flush budget this time, and they gave raises to the state workers who hadn't had them in several years. Greatly needed, and for social workers, greatly needed, because we've had them leaving in droves. But the legislature declined to give raises to the teachers, and in doing so said, well, that should be up to the local school boards, which means that if they want to raise salaries for teachers, the local school boards it would have to come from local property taxes. So my question to you is that an approach you support, or would you support mandating raises for teachers as well?
So it's my understanding that they did give state money to each school board in order for them to divvy out amongst the teachers where they saw fit. So it wouldn't have impacted your local property tax here. That was state money that went there. So at the end of the day, when teachers are important. My wife's a teacher, right? And I truly believe in what they do is valuable. And quite frankly, they don't make enough. No. They don't. For what they do, they do not make enough.
And they had a very, very difficult time during this pandemic.
That's right, they did. And so I think people now appreciate them more than ever, because they had spent some time at home with their children. So here's the other thing I would say is too, but I do believe in local control. I don't believe that Frankfort or Washington, D.C. should have anything to do with the school system here in Nelson County. And the school system here in Nelson County and the superintendent and the school board they're elected. They're held accountable by the voters. In my mind, that's the way it should be. And so I would be in favor of pushing a lot of this down and letting the local school boards throughout the state determine how to spend that money.
Oh, okay. So they have also been talking about restricting what teachers can teach and how they can teach.
Yeah.
Should that be back to the local school board as well?
I think that it should. But remember that bill that passed for Senator Max Wise down in Campbellsville, it didn't said it encouraged and said you need to teach some of this stuff.
Well,
so
but it's telling them what to
right.
teach. That's parsing.
Again, I think that if we're going to say local control, then we got to stick to local control.
Well,
so I would say yes. Local control is the best control. The farther down you can get, and the people are more. The voters have more say so on what's going on. I think the better. Because quite frankly, Nelson County is a lot different than Jefferson County. Nelson County is a lot different than Fayette County and Northern Kentucky, and so the people here and the voters here should have a say so on that.
Well, and I think it just makes sense that every county's different and the needs are different, and that's why you elect a board of education.
That's right.
And they hire a superintendent.
That's right, and I think I think people in this county know how important the board of education is and those things. I think we're going to have some good races coming up in the fall.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of interest now.
Absolutely, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
Yeah, in recent years, candidates, that you would do well to have one candidate to run for a school board seat. There just was not a lot of interest because, admittedly, any service as an elected official is more than just going to a meeting once or twice a month. There's a lot to it.
Well, yeah, in the first place, you've got to be trained for
Right.
30 hours of training a year.
Right. So there's a lot of service there. So, you shouldn't seek one of those offices without really considering what that means to serve.
Agreed.
Anyway, enough of my pontificating, Trey. Well, Trey, we're just about down to the wire. Do you have any final comments you want to leave with our WBRT listening audience?
Absolutely. Again, thank you both for being in here on a Friday. Hopefully it doesn't rain us out and you guys can get out and enjoy the weather this afternoon. But yeah, I believe that Nelson County wants leaders who represent their values and who will defend their values. And if I'm elected to go to Frankfurt, I will do that. I'll fight for individual liberty. I'll create opportunities. And we'll only create opportunities for people today, but for the future generation. That's what I'm really focused on. That's why I'm in this race. My goal, if elected state representative, is to make Nelson County and our community a better place to live. That's it. And May 17th decides who's going to run. There's no Democrat running this. May 17th. So get out and vote. I hope we have a big turnout, a huge turnout. Voting now is easier than ever. You can vote starting next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you can vote on election day. But get out and vote. We hope we have a good turnout, and I would appreciate your vote. If you have any questions, you can reach me on a cell phone. It's 502-889-7966. Give me a call anytime, and thank you.
All right. Well, very good, Trey. And we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Just curious, have you and your wife talked about how you guys plan to vote? Early vote or election day vote?
We're doing the old-fashioned election day vote.
All right.
Yeah. Tradition.
Well, I'm not sure. We haven't really decided how we plan to vote, though.
Now, the early vote is at the Nelson County Library.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and election day will be.
Do we know the times on that?
At the top of my head, I don't, but we will by Wednesday.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
We'll have that information. All right. Thanks again, Trey and Margie. Thank you for coming in. All right. That's going to wrap it up for this Friday edition of Bradford and Brooks. Margie and I will be back this coming Wednesday. David Davis is a Democratic candidate for 3rd District Magistrate.
Right.
He'll be our guest. And then on next Friday, Candy Massaroni, who's a Republican candidate for 50th District State Representative, will be on. So until then, enjoy the weekend. I think there's rain in the forecast tomorrow, but Mother's Day will be beautiful. Get out and enjoy it.